This morning, I woke up to 100 text messages from my dad saying, "I'm sorry they canceled your show." I go, "That's not me. That's Jimmy Kimmel."
But tonight, we are all Jimmy Kimmel. If ABC thinks that this is going to satisfy the regime, they are woefully naive.
Donald Trump is on his way back from a trip to the United Kingdom where he was met with protests, while back here at home, his administration is pursuing a crackdown on free speech. And completely unrelated, I just want to say before we get started here that I've always admired and respected Mr. Trump.
There's something called a talent-o-meter. It's a completely scientific instrument that is kept on the president's desk. And it tells the president when a performer's TQ, talent quotient, measured mostly by niceness to the president, goes below a certain level, at which point the FCC must be notified to threaten the acquisition prospects for billion-dollar mergers of network affiliates.
Well, joining us now to talk about it all, Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization and first son, Eric Trump. Eric, it's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on today.
You know, guys, the great irony. I mean, I just have to say, you know, they talk about censorship, yet my father was thrown off of Facebook. He was thrown off of Instagram. He was thrown off of Twitter. My dials were turned down. They tried to throw you guys off of what, DirecTV, if I remember correctly, before you guys, you know, won the suit. The great irony that their entire play was to gag order Donald Trump, to gag order his family, to make sure that they couldn't be heard from, you know, to keep them in a courthouse all day, and to not let them speak in the midst of a, you know, of a massive campaign, and to make us go out and actually create something called Truth Social, because it was the only way that we could disseminate our voices to the entire world. By the way, they also tried to throw my father in jail for 91 felony counts, because if he was behind bars, he couldn't go out there and actually utilize his voice. But, you know, the great irony about them talking about how, you know, he's trying to stymie free speech is really something that's incredibly special as I sit there and watch that whole monologue.
Yeah, Eric, of course, your father and you and your siblings have been no stranger to being fodder for a lot of those late night shows. And I always wonder, at what point is it, okay, that's kind of funny, I get it, it's political satire. And when does it turn to being, frankly, just mean-spirited and I mean even say potentially politically damaging? Yeah.
You know, I often take it as a badge of honor, you know, because the harder they hit you, and I used to tell this, you know, one of our attorneys, Alina Habba, I always used to say this to her. She was so upset when they went after her. And I said, listen, the harder they hit you, you know, the more effective you're being. Like, don't let it bother you. Actually take it as a great badge of honor that they're coming after you. I was a guy in Saturday Night Live every day with, you know, a fidget spinner, and I run a $10 billion, you know, multinational organization that, you know, has the greatest properties in the world, has done some of the greatest deals, you know, in history, and yet I'm the guy who's walking around like a dummy. And honestly, they want to take you out. They want to kind of belittle you, and that's fine. So again, if you can kind of compartmentalize it right, it's a great badge of honor. I think there's a big difference between that and going after a guy who literally took a bullet to the neck, you know, by an assassin who was calling him a fascist, right? I think that's normally when you stop dropping the you know, the comedy. And so, you know, the reality is he was fired because he wasn't good at his job. He was fired because he had terrible ratings. I think he was getting 1.6, 1.7 million people a night. I mean, on a good night, any of the, you know, cable shows, you know, will beat that number by a pretty large margin, meaning, you know, some of the major networks, and obviously that's network TV versus, and so I think they used it as, first of all, it was stupid to say, but I also think that they used it as a, you know, as a way to get rid of somebody who was no longer resonating, because frankly everything woke goes to you know what. And he's a prime example of that.
Yeah, it goes broke. And we talked about this earlier, Eric. The main demographic for Jimmy Kimmel, he was down like over 70% since he took the chair for his show. So it was totally dismal. Also, we want to talk about, in something that you were discussing with us, your new book coming out on October 14th, titled Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation, which we were just talking about here. Preview the book for us, what you're writing there. Go ahead.
Guys, they did everything they could to destroy us as a family. They tried to do everything they could to destroy my father for me. You know, I became the most subpoenaed person in American history for never having so much as a parking ticket in my life, right? No laptops from hell, nothing. They impeached him twice. They tried to take him off the ballot in states. They were raiding our homes. They weaponized the FBI. They weaponized the DOJ. Every DA and AG in every far blue district in the country came after him. The mug shots, the house raids, You know, the way they went after our employees, the way they went after our company, the way they went after our family members, right? And then when none of that worked, guess what? As I said before, they tried to censor our speech, the gag orders from the judges, the weaponization toward our First Amendment right, taking us off of all those social platforms that we talked about before. And when that didn't work, guess what? They tried to kill my father in Butler, and then they tried to kill him again in West Palm, and they went after Steve Scalise, and they went after, they tried to assassinate Kavanaugh, as you know very well. And guess what? Then they assassinated 2 days before or after this book came out. They assassinated our dear friend Charlie. They wanted us off the stage. They wanted our voices to be silent. They did everything they could to take down my father, our family, and the Make America Great Again movement. And I go into such granular kind of detail as to the 1,000 fights that I fought behind the scenes as I shielded a company, as I shielded our entire family from the political lawfare. And it's a phenomenal book, and it's never been more timely given the events of last week and what happened to our good friend.
Sure. And I mean, based on even what Bob and I do every day, just seeing what you and your family have gone through for years, and then when you trying to condense it in one book, I'm surprised you were able to do that, but I'm sure there's so much more. But I want to get to this because you mentioned the now late, great Charlie Kirk. We know that your dad is going to be speaking at his memorial this Sunday. Let's remind people of something that your dad said about him yesterday.
Just last week, a great American, Charlie Kirk, was heinously assassinated for speaking his mind. He was a great young man, incredible future. Some people said he might be president someday. I told him, I said, Charlie, I think you have a good shot someday at being president.
We know that you and your entire family were very close to him, your friends, as you mentioned. A preview of what your dad might share in his eulogy this weekend.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there. I'll be flying out to Arizona, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. And listen, he was an amazing guy. I mean, I remember he walked into the Trump organization about 10 years ago. He was young. He only had a few chapters of Turning Point, and he goes, Eric, this is what I want to build across the country. I literally want to take over the student bodies of every college. You know, I want to stop the indoctrination. I want to stop the revisionist history. I want to change the minds of kids that are being so indoctrinated by kind of far-left teachers, tenured professors. And here's how I'm going to do it. And listen, I see a lot of nonsense come into our company, a lot of big ideas that will never materialize. You can kind of roll your eyes, and I go, man, there's something special about this kid, but that is a lofty ambition. And guys, as we sit here today, he's done it and more. I mean, everything that he told me a decade ago as a 21, 22-year-old kid, he accomplished all of it, and he accomplished so much more. And you see, you know, these marches across the London Bridge, 1 million people. You see these, you know, celebrations of life in Pretoria, South Africa, not to mention, obviously, the love and support you see all across the United States. I mean, he was a inspirational guy. He was a great friend to the family. He was a hell of a champion of this movement. He was a big part of why my father is, you know, in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now. We will never get off that stage. We will never stop fighting. And I don't care how many bullets they throw at us. We are going to be out there, and we are going to continue to win as we have for the last 10 years.
Eric Trump, beautifully stated, and again, just the violence has been completely unacceptable, and staying safe, of course, very, very important. But thank you for being so candid with us. Please come back and join us on American Agenda soon. The book is Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. That is out October 14th. Congratulations on the book, and we will be with you. Our hearts and peaceful thoughts will be with you this weekend.